Tony Michaels, some of you have seen on stage already. Tony Michaels has been associated with NCSB for about 15 years now, I think. What's relevant to this part of the conference, though, is that a few years ago, he took over Midwestern BioAg, which is a company focused on sustainable agriculture and soil fertility. One of the interesting things about the Nexus, I have been getting a very deep education in preparation for the conference, is that you can look at the Nexus through lots of integrated cross-cutting media. So we've got sessions here on cities, we've got sessions on watersheds, we've got sessions looking at modeling crosscuts, data crosscuts. Soil is one of those interesting places where the Nexus really comes together. And it was very interesting that yesterday Dan Barber noted that his book, about a quarter of it was about soil. He was focused on food and wanted people to be interested in food. But every time he probed a little deeper into what made food great, it's coming back to soil. And soils are incredibly important and provide resilience and ways of approaching the Nexus. So on that note, let me introduce a longtime friend, leader at NCSB and CEO of Midwestern BioAg, Tony Michaels. Because we're running a little bit late, we're not going to have time to take questions on those comments on the floor. However, Tony is going to be here all today and tomorrow, and you'll see him everywhere. And so don't hesitate to grab his collar and call him for questions and conversations.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you all doing? Great. I ate through last night's dinner and drinks and got here this early morning. Thank you very much for showing up. I'm going to tell some stories. I'll talk fast. I'll use the excuse that I'm short, but I don't talk fast, but I want to say. And I'm going to try and give, as Peter mentioned, a little bit of perspective from being on the ground in the field, trying to help farms to change, help farms to improve, help agriculture to be more sustainable. We do it through a soil-based prism, but really it's a whole farm system-based approach that we use. And I'll tell some stories about some farms, and then I'll try and draw some lessons about some other drivers that might be useful for us as we think about how to take the great ideas that are put together by the people in this room and sort of push them forward into action. We can't just talk about these things. We want to actually see farms change. We want to actually see food, water, and energy be made better as we understand it, particularly the Nexus. And so I'll do this, start with some farms, and then some broader perception. And I'll start with this farm. So this farm is Otter Creek Organic Farm. The founder of our company, Gary Zimmer, bought this farm in 1991 as a place to try things out and demonstrate different kinds of methods. We've been in this business for over 30 years working with farms. We have about 4,000 farms on 1 million acres that use the kinds of things that I'll talk about today. But this is sort of ground zero for trying new stuff out. And it's relevant that there are cows on this farm. This is a dairy farm. Gary was a dairy nutritionist when he started. And the question that got Gary into soils was actually, how do you feed a cow? When you feed a cow, you measure what's in the hay and the grain, and you compare that with a list of things that makes a healthy cow. And you prescribe all these pills and potions to the 1 days that it takes to make that cow's balanced diet. And he asked the question, can I get a lot more of that nutrition in the hay? And so he worked for many years, 40 years ago, to try and build approaches and borrow a lot of ideas from different areas to build soils that put nutrition into grass. Well, that's interesting. When you put nutrition into grass, you can do this. Gary was very successful as these hays are about 50% more nutritious than regular hay. It's actually good for the hay, too. And you get a much higher yield. And so we say a dairy farmer gets paid twice, once for the extra nutrition, or once for the extra yield, the second time for the extra nutrition. But every farmer gets paid for extra yield. So this Midwestern BioAg was born really around the yield proposition. If you build a soil that's biologically rich, you pay attention to all the diversity of minerals and things that it needs to make a plant grow well, you get higher yields, lower costs, you make more money. You also have great environmental benefits of lower carbon footprint, you have less nutrient runoff, you get more nutritious food, but you rarely get paid for those things. And so the folks at the company get bent on how to make farmers more money, and at the same time, we don't hardly mention the environmental benefits that they get. And this farm sort of is an example of that. This is in central Wisconsin. It's an area where the average corn yield is about 130 bushels. This organic farm averages between 180 and 200 bushels. The bean yields are about twice the average. This sweet corn oversees the conventional rates. The yields are about twice. This farm makes a ton of money because not only does higher yields, it's paid the organic price. And so this farm's net profits exceed his neighbor's gross revenues. It's a dramatic difference in scale. But this is an intensively managed farm. So just down the street, there's another farm that we work on. I don't know if anybody recognizes this. This is Taliesin. This is Frank Lloyd Wright's family farm. The Lloyd Joneses were a very progressive set of farmers moved into this valley in the mid-1800s. And after Frank Lloyd Wright died, this was farmed conventionally and sort of really trashed. We took this farm over about 15 years ago and started rebuilding the soil. It's now farmed organically. It's just breathlessly beautiful farm. I mean, it's one thing, a lot of farms are beautiful, but Frank Lloyd Wright designed a beautiful farm. And we just added some beautiful soils and beautiful crops onto it. So it's a phenomenal place to take people and show them the kinds of things that have been done. But on a different part of this farm, we're doing another experiment. And this really gets to, I think, another driver in agriculture that's really an issue. Farmers are getting old. Not a lot of young people are going into farming. And a big part of the reason is you can't afford to buy the land. You can't afford to run a farm if all your land is rented or all your land is a big mortgage on it. And so how do you get young people into farming? And so what we've done is taken a section of land where we built the soil for 15 years. It's a phenomenally productive soil. Turned it into a vegetable farm. Hired a young couple of a different organic farm. They come in and farm this with the idea of seeing the two people run an organic vegetable farm, phenomenal soil, every piece of natural capacity on their side, and make enough money not just to feed themselves, but to save enough to actually buy that farm over the course of 3 to 5 years. And this project is growing to the 3rd year of this experiment, and we have to 10 acres next year. It's about twice as productive as your average vegetable farm. Most of this goes into restaurants and CSAs. And it looks like it's working. It looks like next year they'll make enough money in excess of their costs of the farm and their living costs to be able to have saved enough. Now, they can't buy this farm. You can't buy Frank Lloyd Wright's farm, but across the street we bought a parcel that they'll be able to buy if they could pull this off. And so really, how do you get young people into farming where they own enough of the land that they're competitive with all historical farmers that have large parts of their farms that they own free and clear? Here's another farmer. This is a customer. Chad Gleason is a nice, aggressive, conventional farmer, corn and beans, and he's got some livestock on his farm. And he really has tried very hard to use all of the conventional approaches to get as far ahead as he can. And in an area that sort of averages 150 or so bushels of corn, he's been consistently right around 200. He uses every bit of chemistry, technology, and everything that he can. About 3 years ago, we met up with him and started talking through the kinds of things we worry about, trace minerals and soil biology and things like that. He realized he wasn't paying attention to those. And some of these 500 bushel people that are out there, they pay attention to those things. So he said, let me try it. This is the perfect kind of customer. He dives in head first. Both feet, whatever the analogies you want to use. He does everything. He changed his entire operation. He added all kinds of other crops to the rotation. He changed how he used the manures. He remineralized the soils. Added all kinds of extra biology. And he was able, in just the course of 3 years, to raise his yields to close to 300 bushels of corn, about 50% increase in his bean yield. His animals, livestock got a lot healthier, and he was able to feed them for a lower cost. Beautiful transformations. And he was making a lot more money. And you can't really see these soil tests, but the soils changed even in just a few years. When he intensively did this, the organic matter went from about 3.3% to 4.7%, about 1.3% increase in the amount of organic matter. That's really unusual that big of a change in that short of a period. All the trace minerals and other stuff came up. He really worked his farm, and he really, you see some amazing changes in the farm. But this is a different farm. This is Gary Modernock. This is another customer. He's been a customer for 20 years. He's a classic Iowa corn and bean farmer. We got to know him 20 years ago. He was putting out about 150 pounds of nitrogen to grow 140 bushels of corn. Standard kind of deal for where he was. And he met up with one of our folks. We got to chatting. A lot of this is very farmer-to-farmer kind of a conversation. And realized, oh, there's some things I'm not thinking about. I'll try your fertilizer, but I'm not going to change anything else on my farm. I want to farm exactly the way I've always farmed, but hey, I spray fertilizer every year. You give me a better fertilizer. Put anything in you want there. I'll give it a try. And so he slowly tried these fertilizers. The only thing he changed was how he added minerals, how he added the biology in the form of the fertilizer. And it took him longer, but he's also now up about 300 bushels of corn. Same 150 units of nitrogen, just in a more life-friendly form. But his average nitrogen per bushel went from over 1 pound per bushel to less than half a pound per bushel. He's got a substantial driver of the carbon footprint on his farm. He's making more money. He's very, very happy. He's rarely sprays fungicides. There's a lot of other benefits. All he changed was his fertilizer. But he did change to the prism of thinking about the soil and what was best for the plants and what he could do to build the soil. And this kind of customer is much more common than Chad, where they just change a few things on their farm. We went out recently, did a survey of 37 farms that were just like the standard corn bean farm, which didn't change anything about their fertility, and looked at the average performance. And again, they were up sort of about 30 bushels per acre on their corn, similar kinds of increases in their yield, and it's hard to see the numbers there, but they all make more money. And that's the key driver for most of our customers is that they make more money doing this. That's why they do it. All the other benefits, they just fly along for. And so why does this work? What is the change in perspective that we think that's a part of why these customers, as I say, we have about 4,000 of them that do these kinds of things. And we think it's because they're starting to incorporate a systems approach to how they farm, whether they think that way or not. And if you think about a farm, there's lots of things that can affect your crop. One of our mantras is never let your crop have a bad day. You're starting out, you put that seed in the ground, you have the potential for enormous yields, and then stuff starts to happen, and it's usually not so good. And the crop's potential goes down and down over time. So think about these things. There's a whole bunch of little bubble diagram here that just, what are all the things that can give your crops a bad day? What are all the things that have advantage to be a good farmer? There's all the things that have to do with geography, where you are, the soil, where the water. There's all the chemistry things, the major nutrients, the micronutrients, secondary nutrients, the soil structure. There's all the living stuff, the vital material, the microbes and the invertebrates that are in that soil. You got your crop choices. What crops you use? Do you use cover crops? What kinds of cover crops? What kinds of genetics? What kinds of biotechnology? You got your crop protection. What are you going to do about your weeds, your pests, and your diseases as they come through? You got a lot of choices about how you drive across that property and the things you do to till the land, or not to till the ways you plant, the ways that you harvest. And this is still fundamentally business. You got to make some money, so you got all your choices about capital and labor and the economics of your farm. These are all things that influence whether you succeed, how much money you make, what kind of crop you create, what markets you can enter. And you can add all kinds of other goals up there. The point I want to make from the perspective of somebody selling things to farmers is, generally speaking, we sell products that attach to single bubbles on that paper. If I've got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I'm selling you a fungicide, I'm going to talk to you about a fungus problem, whether you got one or not. And the mindset is very sort of siloed almost by the product intensity of how we address farmers. But the reality is, these things are all fundamentally interconnected. You can't change one of those things with influencing a whole variety of other ones that are in that matrix. And these are really complex adaptive systems. Everything is connected to everything else. You look at how you're going to affect one element of this farm, you really have to consider how it is influenced or influences all kinds of other things. And that systems approach is what makes it hard, is what makes it a wicked kind of problem. You can see the same thing as you raise it to another level of the food, energy, water, nexus, that same kind of complex interrelated system. This is the real difference into which we need to talk about farms. We need to sell products on the farm, the way that we need to address challenge of these farms to get the outside benefits. It's a real challenge to talk about this ever with farmers, but at the same time, the real opportunity is that there's emerging properties of all these interactions. There's things beyond just the one product, one problem kind of approach that you can use to get additional benefits for the customers. So many of the things that we see are really the emergent properties of this whole system. So now let's talk about a couple of other drivers in agriculture. I'm going to pick on General Mills a little bit here, Cheerios. Why do you eat oats? Oats are heart healthy. See a picture of the bowl, it's in the shape of a heart, right? It's got soluble fiber, it's good for your cholesterol. This is heart healthy. This is a medical claim you can stick on a box and not get sued. And that's why people love oats. That's why. Now, why are we so concerned about Cheerios? What's the driver here? Well, consumers have changed. The consumer today is starting to demand a lot more out of those boxes in the middle of the grocery store, and even out of the things at the periphery of the grocery store. We want to know if it's healthy. We want to know if it's going to make us well, or if it's going to contribute to making us sick. We really start to care about these issues, and the food companies are responding. When we look at that label, we want to see something that looks like food ingredients rather than chemicals on that label. And the food companies are starting to change. And oats is a good example. We do some oats on contracts on our soils for some of these food companies. And it's interesting. We grow oats. You know, a lot of these food companies also have big carbon mandates and they make amazing pledges in advance of Paris. We grew about 2,000 acres, 150,000 bushels of oats just recently for one of these companies. And about half as much nitrogen to grow the oats, about 2 tons per acre less CO2 footprint. Hey, we help them on their carbon footprint. That's how they care about it. The amazing thing was we had a 50% increase in beta and soluble fiber, which is what really makes those oats more healthy. You grow soil, you grow crops on great soil, you get better health benefits in the food. The proteins are higher. These are benefits that come with the crop that they can then add. Think about that Cheerios crops now with 50% more heart healthy fiber. That's the kind of claim that gets them excited, even more excited than the fact that lower carbon footprint. But these are real drivers. Right now, nobody knows where their raw materials come from in these big food companies. It goes to the elevator and then to ATM and then finally gets delivered to their plants. To get this knowledge, they have to connect their farm, their product to the farm that the actual crop comes from. And now you have the ability to influence what happens on that farm through the choices that the big food companies and the consumers are making. You want to change something on that box of Cheerios? 1 million acres has the farm to change 1 acre box in grocery store. Extraordinarily powerful change. It's a double our company to change just a box like Cheerios. So now let's talk about another farm. This is my family farm, the Langer farm. I lived on this farm for a while when I was a kid. And this is a classic Wisconsin dairy farm. 40 cows, 160 acres. A lot of work, man. Not good for farm. But the trick with this farm is that you grew the feed for your cows on those 160 acres. You fed all your cows, and you took the manure and you just spread it right back out in those fields. It's a nice sort of interaction between animals and the crops that they grew. You go out on the landscape today and you see lots and lots of acres without an animal in sight of the same few grains being planted over and over again with the same practices. And you see animals concentrated together in larger and larger operations. If you're a long distance apart, you can no longer. It's easy to ship the grain to the animal, but it's hard to get that manure back. That it's heavy, it's wet, it's too expensive to move it anywhere. It's not really worth that much. And it collects in pits. It becomes a waste problem rather than a nutrient the way it's always been. And so this is a profound challenge in the way we raise animals today. We could argue we're going back to small little farms, but you could also figure out how to use this more effectively. There are people that are using this to make energy. It's a concentrated energy source. You can take about half of the mass and get rid of it by taking methane. But methane removes the carbon, so the nutrients are all still there, and the nutrients are still the pollution problem that they don't absorb. And so one of the things we've started doing is taking these and doing some water section treatment, standard sort of water treatment to separate the solids. You get the nutrients out of the water, you got cleaner water, but you spend some money doing this, and this does not work crap. It's just another form of manure. And so it isn't still worth hauling very far as a fertilizer. So think about the way we build biological soils. We always want to feed microbes when we add anything to the soil. And so this is microfood. This is a delivery mechanism for the life that's going to take up those nutrients, put it in the microbial loop that's in the soil, deliver it out to the crop. And so what we do is we blend this with our complex mixtures of minerals and other things that are part of that whole system's approach. The bacteria food part, and then we granulate it into a hard, pelletized fertilizer that's exactly like all the special fertilizers out there. Now worth something. This is a delivery mechanism for value. We can afford to ship it great distances. We can get it back out to those farms that lost those minerals when they shipped the grain over to the animals. Another really intriguing observation has sort of come to us recently as we've looked at how to build this business and scale the business we're in. Our customers when they use our practices, use them on the land they own, not on the land that they rent. Generally speaking, in the areas of higher percentage that they own, about half of their acres, they rent about half of it. The land they own, they have a very personal connection to. They're holding it in trust for their children. They feel a strong sense of stewardship. They're going to manage that land for the long term. The land that they rent, if they make it better and invest in making it better, the landlord is just going to raise the rent and take all that value from it. So they mine the land they rent, they steward the land that they own. And that's wrong. That's too much land to sort of just be left out because of the contractual obligation that's set. And I think this is one of the other big things we've got to reckon. This fundamental dichotomy is more and more of the land is owned by absentee owners, really the children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren of former farmers, but still using it as just a revenue source, no connection to that farming. So we've got to realign these incentives. And we found some financial mechanisms that we can use, investment activities that can help do that. But I think there's a bigger proposition here that we need to work through. How do we get people that are renting land to realize it's being stricter capacity by the people they rent it to, the people that own that land, realize that it's being stricter than capacity. How do we get them to realign their long-term value? There's more profit to be made in land that's well managed. How can we share that in a way that's good for both parties? And there's a lot of, I think, ideas that we need to address on this right now. So just in summary, systems thinking is, I think, going to drive the successes that we have and that we need to have. There's new opportunities in the systems, how it's done, the emerging properties of these complex systems, and that's, I think, the most fertile ground for big improvements. We really have to incentivize this nutrient efficiency. We grow crops on about half the nutrients. Really, we grow twice as many crops on the same nutrients. That's kind of the philosophy that makes farmers more money, that makes let more of those nutrients leave as a crop rather than lose. It costs a farmer 40 cents a pound to add another pound of nutrients to their land. It costs the city $25 to $100 a pound to get those nutrients out of the water. That's too big of a mismatch of value not to come up with a value proposition that connects those two back together. We have to align the interests of the owners of land and the people that rent that land, as more and more of this land is not owned by the people that farm it. And those have to come together if we're really going to make systemic change in this country. And I think we really have to honor and reward the public commitments that these big food companies make. It's so easy to criticize the big food companies. They're hard to change. They do things the hard way. It's a really tricky thing to move those ships in a different direction. But it's a powerful force for changing farms when they're making decisions and making commitments that really do influence in a positive way how lots and lots of acres are managed, what happens on those acres. And as Walmart puts these mandates on food companies, as all those food companies that made their commitments for Paris trying to live up to their carbon reduction and nutrient efficiency commitments, I think we need to support that and use it as an incredibly powerful tool that it is, rather than spend a lot of time criticizing it. So these are just a set of ideas on from the perspective of people out selling fertilizer and working with farms that they try and I think realize a lot of the benefits and ideas that we have as a community. I hope they're useful. I think we have a powerful opportunity here. There's a lot of forces that are working in our favor, that lead at our back, if you will, in how we address these issues. And I'm very optimistic that there's a lot of possibilities to actually execute on the kinds of ideas that we have here. It's exciting to work with you all as we move down that path. Thank you very much.